common wedding. Except, it was a Mossad operation. Nomi Levy watched from the shadows as the couple exchanged vows, her finger poised on the trigger. This was her moment, the culmination of months of meticulous planning. With a single squeeze, she would eliminate the target and escape before anyone was the wiser. But as the ceremony drew to a close, Noni's practiced gaze detected a shift in the groom's demeanor. He was no longer the joyful, oblivious Mark. His eyes had hardened, his movements betraying the trained reflexes of a seasoned operative. Nomi's blood ran cold. She had been compromised. Abandoning her sniper's perch, Nomi fled the scene, knowing her agency's darkest secrets were now at the mercy of this unexpected adversary. For 20 years, she had buried the ghosts of that fateful mission, convinced she had covered her tracks. But the past had a way of catching up, and now Nomi found herself in a desperate race against time to uncover the true motives of the man she had once tried to eliminate. As she delved deeper into the investigation, Nomi uncovered a tangled web of political intrigue, personal vendettas, and technological advancements that had irrevocably altered the rules of modern warfare. Her former target, it seemed, had become a formidable player in a high-stakes game, wielding knowledge that could topple governments and expose Mossad's most closely guarded secrets. Nomi's once flawless reputation was now on the line, and she knew she had to act quickly to contain the fallout. Relying on her sharp instincts and a lifetime of covert experience, she embarked on a treacherous journey that would take her from the bustling streets of Tel Aviv to the shadowy corners of the dark web, where cutting-edge tech and old-fashioned tradecraft collided in a deadly dance. Along the way, Nomi was forced to confront the consequences of her actions, the moral gray areas that had once been so easily justified in the name of national security. As she peeled back the layers of deception, she realized that the true enemy might not be the man she had once tried to eliminate, but the very system that had trained her to be the perfect assassin. With time running out and powerful forces closing in, Nomi had to make a choice: cling to the rigid rules of her profession or embrace the uncertainty of a new paradigm where the line between right and wrong had become increasingly blurred. The fate of Mossad, and perhaps even the stability of the entire region, hung in the balance. In the end, Nomi's search for the truth would force her to confront her own demons, to question the very foundations of the life she had dedicated to serving her country. And as the final, devastating revelations came to light, she would be left to wonder if the perfect assassination she had once carried out had in fact been the greatest mistake of her career. The target. Nomi Leva's heart raced as she fled the wedding scene, her former target's ominous gaze still searing in her mind. Who was this man, and how had he slipped through her grasp all those years ago? As she dove into the investigation, the stakes quickly became clear. The man she had been tasked to eliminate was none other than Amir Kalani, a brilliant young engineer whose innovations had sparked a technological revolution in the world of espionage. Kalani had developed groundbreaking advancements in quantum computing, cryptography, and drone technology, tools that were rapidly reshaping the balance of power in the Middle East. Geopolitical scenario. For decades, Mossad had relied on its vast network of human intelligence to maintain Israel's strategic edge in the region, but Kalani's inventions threatened to render those hard-won assets obsolete. His unbreakable encryption protocols and autonomous surveillance drones had already compromised Mossad's most sensitive operations, exposing critical vulnerabilities that could be exploited by Israel's adversaries. The implications were dire. If Kalani's technology fell into the wrong hands, it could tip the scales of the ongoing proxy wars raging across the Middle East, empowering Iran, Hezbollah, and other anti-Israeli factions. Worse still, Kalani's work could be weaponized, creating devastating new threats to Israel's security and the stability of the region as a whole. The importance of the target. Nomi knew that eliminating Kalani was now an urgent national priority. Her superiors had made it clear. This was no longer just about a botched assassination from 2 decades ago. The fate of Israel's intelligence apparatus and the delicate balance of power in the Middle East now hung in the balance. If Kalani's technology was allowed to proliferate, it could undermine decades of Mossad's hard-won tactical advantages. Rival agencies would be able to anticipate and counter Israeli operations with unprecedented precision, rendering Mossad's carefully cultivated human assets useless. Worse still, this technological edge could embolden Israel's enemies to escalate their aggression, potentially sparking a wider regional conflict that could draw in global superpowers. The stakes had never been higher. Nomi had to succeed where she had failed before, not just for the sake of her own tarnished reputation, but for the very survival of her country. Operational plan. Nomi's superiors had given her a clear mandate: track down Kalani, neutralize him, and secure his technological innovations before they could be exploited. It was a tall order, complicated by the fact that Kalani had seemingly anticipated their move, evading Mossad's initial attempts to locate him. But Nomi was undaunted. She had spent her career honing the skills and tradecraft necessary to operate in the shadows, and she was determined to put them to the test. Drawing on her extensive network of contacts, both in the intelligence community and the criminal underworld, Nomi began to piece together Kalani's movements and the extent of his technological empire. The trail led her from the bustling streets of Tel Aviv to the shadowy corners of the dark web, where she found evidence of Kalani's involvement in a series of high-stakes transactions involving powerful political actors and rogue tech entrepreneurs. It was clear that he had become a central figure in a complex web of intrigue, one that threatened to destabilize the entire region. As Nomi delved deeper into the investigation, she realized that time was of the essence. Kalani's innovations were spreading rapidly, and any misstep on her part could allow them to fall into the wrong hands. She knew she had to move quickly, but with Kalani's formidable defenses and the potential for catastrophic consequences, she also had to be careful. With her agency's reputation and the future of Israel's national security on the line, Nomi prepared to embark on a treacherous mission that would test the limits of her skills and her resolve. The fate of the Middle East hung in the balance, and she was determined to succeed where she had failed before, no matter the cost. The strike. Nomi's heart pounded as she raced through the bustling streets of Tel Aviv, her mind whirling with the implications of what she had uncovered. Kalani was no longer just a target. He was a formidable adversary with the power to expose Mossad's most closely guarded secrets. She had to move quickly, but this time her every step would have to be meticulously planned. Ducking into a nondescript salon, Nomi slipped past the curious glances of the patrons and made her way to the back, where a discreet staircase led to a secure underground facility. Here, she would begin the intricate process of transforming herself into someone else entirely. Hours later, Nomi emerged from the salon, her features altered by a subtle blend of makeup, prosthetics, and carefully styled hair. She was now Eliana Cohen, a wealthy widow with a penchant for high-end fashion and a seemingly innocuous interest in antiques. Clutching a sleek leather briefcase, she hailed a taxi and set off for her next destination, a sprawling hotel in the heart of the city. As the cab wove through the traffic, Nomi's practiced eyes scanned the surroundings, cataloging every detail that could potentially compromise her mission. She noted the locations of security cameras, the presence of uniformed guards, and the flow of pedestrian traffic. Nothing would be left to chance. Arriving at the hotel, Nomi strode through the lavish lobby, her confident stride and polished appearance drawing admiring glances from the other guests. At the front desk, she presented her false identification and booked a suite, carefully selecting a room that offered a clear view of her target's known movements. Once settled in her suite, Nomi got to work, unpacking a series of high-tech surveillance devices and communication equipment. She meticulously placed cameras and motion sensors, ensuring that every inch of the hotel was under her watchful gaze. Secure encrypted channels were established, allowing her to maintain constant contact with her Mossad handlers. As night fell, Nomi donned a sleek, form-fitting evening gown and made her way to the hotel's opulent restaurant, where Kalani was scheduled to dine with a group of his associates. Weaving through the bustling tables, she caught sight of her target, his features now aged, but still undeniably familiar. Nomi took a seat at a table nearby, her keen eyes studying Kalani's every move. She watched as he engaged in animated conversations, his hands gesturing emphatically as he discussed the latest advancements in his technology. Nomi's fingers twitched, the memory of her failed assassination attempt still haunting her. But this time, she was better prepared. Discreetly activating the hidden cameras and microphones, Nomi began to piece together the intricate web of Kalani's business dealings, capturing every word, every interaction. The information she gathered would be invaluable, potentially revealing the full scope of his technological empire and the powerful forces he had aligned himself with. As the meal drew to a close, Nomi watched as Kalani stood and bid farewell to his companions, his movements smooth and effortless. There was no longer a trace of the joyful, unsuspecting groom she had once targeted. This was a seasoned operative, one who had clearly honed his skills in the years since their last encounter. Nomi's breath caught in her throat as Kalani's gaze swept across the restaurant, his eyes lingering on her for a heartbeat too long. Had he recognized her? The tension in the air was palpable, and Nomi knew she had to act quickly. Abandoning her half-finished meal, she swiftly made her way to the hotel's elevators, her mind racing. She had the evidence she needed to piece together Kalani's network, but now she had to find a way to eliminate him without compromising her own identity. The stakes had never been higher, and Nomi knew that the slightest misstep could unravel everything she had worked so hard to achieve. As the elevator doors closed, Nomi steeled herself for the next phase of her mission, determined to finish what she had started 2 decades ago. This time, she would not fail. The execution. Nomi's heart pounded as the elevator carried her swiftly upwards, her mind racing with possibilities. Had Kalani recognized her? Had her cover been compromised? She couldn't afford any mistakes, not when so much was at stake. Reaching her floor, Nomi strode purposefully down the plush-carpeted hallway, her fingers itching to reach for the sleek pistol concealed beneath her gown. She knew Kalani's suite was just ahead, and she had to act quickly before he had a chance to vanish again. Slowing her pace, Nomi approached the door, her senses on high alert. Pressing her ear against the wood, she could hear the faint sounds of movement inside. Kalani was still there. Nomi took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. This was the moment she had been training for her entire career. Withdrawing a small electronic lockpick from her clutch, she made quick work of the door's security, the lock mechanism clicking open with a soft whir. Pushing the door ajar, Nomi silently stepped into the suite, her eyes sweeping the dimly lit room. There, seated at a desk in the corner, was Kalani, his brow furrowed as he studied a series of computer screens. Nomi's fingers tightened around the grip of her weapon. She took a step forward, her movements fluid and silent, the years of covert training kicking in. But just as she was about to raise her gun, Kalani's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto hers. "Nomi," he said, his voice calm and measured. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Nomi's blood ran cold. How had he known? Had she been followed, her every move tracked by his formidable surveillance network? "Kalani," she responded, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "I'm surprised you remembered me." Kalani stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "How could I forget? You were the one who tried to end my life all those years ago." Nomi tightened her grip on the pistol, her finger poised on the trigger. "And I'm here to finish the job." Kalani raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, a small smile playing on his lips. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Nomi. Not when there's so much at stake." Nomi's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The world is changing, Nomi," Kalani said, his gaze unwavering. "The old ways of espionage and warfare are becoming obsolete. My technology, the very thing you've been sent to destroy, holds the key to a new era of security and stability." Nomi felt a chill run down her spine. "You're a traitor, Kalani. Your inventions could topple governments, put countless lives at risk." Kalani shook his head. "On the contrary, Nomi, my work is the only thing that can prevent the kind of catastrophic conflict that would tear the region apart. Imagine a world where intelligence agencies can predict and prevent attacks before they happen, where borders and ideologies become irrelevant in the face of a common threat." Nomi's finger tightened on the trigger, her mind racing. Could it be true? Was Kalani's technology really the key to a more stable and secure future? "You expect me to just take your word for it?" she spat, her resolve wavering. Kalani took a step forward, his eyes intense. "I'm offering you a chance to be a part of something greater, Nomi, something that could change the course of history. All you have to do is put down your weapon and listen." Nomi's grip on the pistol trembled. Could she really trust this man, after all he had done? The fate of her country, her very legacy, hung in the balance. In the tense silence that followed, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the suite, and Nomi instinctively ducked as a hail of bullets tore through the air. Kalani had been right. She had been followed, and now they were both under attack. Nomi's training took over as she dove for cover, returning fire with practiced precision. But as she fought for her life, a single thought burned in her mind. Had she made the greatest mistake of her career by hesitating? The consequences of her decision would reverberate through the halls of Mossad and beyond, shaking the very foundations of the Middle East's delicate balance of power. The aftermath. Nomi's heart pounded as she ducked behind the overturned desk, the sound of shattering glass and gunfire filling the air. Kalani was crouched beside her, his expression calm and focused despite the chaos unfolding around them. "We need to get out of here, now," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of the assault. Nomi risked a glance over the edge of the desk, her eyes scanning the room for a possible escape route. The suite was under siege, the intruders seemingly well-trained and equipped. Whoever they were, they clearly weren't taking any chances. "Who are they?" Nomi hissed, her fingers tightening around the grip of her weapon. Kalani shook his head, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't know, but they're not with Mossad. They're after us both." The realization struck Nomi like a physical blow. If this wasn't a Mossad operation, then who was behind the attack? And more importantly, what did they know about Kalani's technology and its potential implications? "We need to move," Kalani said, his eyes locking onto hers. "Follow my lead and trust me." Nomi hesitated for a fraction of a second, the weight of her decision still heavy on her mind. But in the face of this unexpected threat, she knew she had no choice. Steeling herself, she nodded, and together they made a break for the balcony. The gunfire intensified as they dashed across the room, Nomi and Kalani ducking and weaving to avoid the hail of bullets. Reaching the sliding glass doors, Kalani wrenched them open and gestured for Nomi to go first. "What about you?" Nomi shouted, her eyes wide with concern. "I'll be right behind you," Kalani replied, his voice calm and assured. "Now go!" Nomi didn't hesitate, leaping over the balcony railing and plummeting towards the street below. The wind whipped through her hair as she fell, her heart in her throat. Just as she was about to hit the ground, a sleek black sedan screeched to a halt, the passenger door flying open. "Get in!" a familiar voice yelled, and Nomi didn't need to be told twice.
She scrambled into the car, slamming the door shut just as Kalani landed beside her, his breathing heavy, but his movements still fluid and graceful. The car peeled away from the curb, the tires squealing as it sped through the darkened streets. Nomi risked a glance backwards, her eyes widening as she caught sight of the hotel erupting in flames, the sound of sirens echoing in the distance. "What the hell just happened?" she demanded, her voice shaking with a mix of adrenaline and confusion. Kalani met her gaze, his expression somber. "It seems our little reunion has attracted some unwanted attention." Nomi felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean those weren't Mossad agents?" Kalani shook his head, his eyes narrowing. "No, they weren't. And whatever they know about my work, it's clear they're willing to go to extreme lengths to keep it out of the wrong hands." Nomi's mind raced, the implications of this new development dawning on her. "So who are they then? And what do they want with your technology?" Kalani sighed, his shoulders slumping with the weight of the knowledge he carried. "That's what I intend to find out. But one thing is clear, the stakes have just been raised, and the future of the entire region hangs in the balance." As the car sped through the darkened streets, Nomi couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The operation had spiraled out of control, and now they were both caught in the crosshairs of a shadowy enemy with unknown motives. The once simple mission to eliminate Kalani had morphed into something far more complex, with far-reaching consequences that could potentially reshape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. Nomi glanced at Kalani, her eyes searching his face for any sign of fear or uncertainty, but all she saw was a steely resolve, a determination that she had only glimpsed during their last encounter all those years ago. It was clear that he was no longer the carefree groom she had once targeted, but a seasoned operative with a deep understanding of the high-stakes game they were now playing. As the car sped towards an uncertain future, Nomi knew that the decisions they made in the coming days and weeks would have lasting repercussions, not just for themselves, but for the entire region. The balance of power had been irrevocably altered, and the consequences of their actions would reverberate through the halls of Mossad and beyond, shaking the very foundations of the Middle East's fragile stability. The final chapter of this saga was yet to be written, but Nomi knew that the stakes had never been higher. The fate of nations and the future of modern warfare hung in the balance, and they would have to navigate this treacherous landscape with unparalleled skill and determination. As the car disappeared into the night, Nomi steeled herself for the challenges that lay ahead, her mind already racing with the implications of the revelations that had been thrust upon them.
The true test was only just beginning. The final chapter. The car sped through the darkened streets, Nomi's mind whirling with the implications of what had just occurred. Who were these mysterious assailants, and what did they know about Kalani's groundbreaking technology? As the vehicle wove through the winding roads, she turned to her former target, her eyes narrowed with determination. "All right, Kalani, start talking. What the hell is going on?" she demanded, her voice laced with a mixture of suspicion and urgency. Kalani met her gaze, his expression grave. "It's worse than I thought, Nomi. This isn't just about my work. It's about the future of the entire region, and perhaps even the world." Nomi felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "The technology I've developed," Kalani began, his voice measured, "has the potential to revolutionize the world of espionage and warfare. Imagine a future where intelligence agencies can predict and prevent attacks before they even happen, where borders and ideologies become irrelevant in the face of a common threat." Nomi's eyes widened as the gravity of his words sank in. "So what, you're saying your technology could bring about a new era of peace and stability?" Kalani nodded solemnly. "That's precisely what I'm saying. But it seems there are those who don't want that future to come to pass." Nomi's brow furrowed. "You think those attackers were after your technology?" "I'm certain of it," Kalani replied, his gaze unwavering. "They're willing to go to extreme lengths to keep it out of the wrong hands, including eliminating anyone who might threaten their plans." Nomi's mind raced as she pieced together the implications. "So you think they're trying to preserve the current balance of power in the region? To keep the status quo?" Kalani nodded. "Exactly. My technology has the potential to upend decades of geopolitical maneuvering, to render obsolete the very tactics that Mossad and other intelligence agencies have relied on for years." Nomi felt a pang of unease. "And you think I was part of their plan to stop you?" "I don't know," Kalani admitted, his expression pensive. "But what I do know is that we're both in grave danger. These forces will stop at nothing to keep my work from seeing the light of day." Nomi's fingers tightened around the door handle as the car sped onward, her mind grappling with the weight of Kalani's revelation. If what he was saying was true, then the ramifications were staggering. "So what do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kalani's lips curved into a grim smile. "We fight back. We expose the truth and show the world the transformative power of my technology before it's too late." Nomi nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then let's get to work. I'm in." In the weeks and months that followed, Nomi and Kalani embarked on a perilous journey, their alliance forged in the crucible of that fateful night. They delved into the tangled web of political intrigue, uncovering a cabal of powerful forces that had been quietly orchestrating the status quo in the Middle East for decades. Their revelations sent shockwaves through the intelligence community, exposing the vulnerabilities of traditional espionage tactics and the desperate attempts of certain factions to maintain their grip on power. Kalani's groundbreaking technology, which could predict the movements of enemy forces with uncanny accuracy and thwart even the most sophisticated cyber attacks, threatened to upend the very foundations of modern warfare. The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. Governments scrambled to adapt, forging new alliances and rethinking their security strategies. Rival intelligence agencies found themselves at odds, their once reliable assets and methods rendered obsolete. The delicate balance of power in the region teetered on the brink of collapse as nations jockeyed to gain control of Kalani's revolutionary innovations. But Nomi and Kalani refused to back down, driven by a shared vision of a more stable and secure future. They battled against the shadowy cabal, risking their lives to bring their findings to light and convince the world of the transformative potential of Kalani's technology. In the end, their efforts paid off. Kalani's innovations were adopted by a coalition of nations, ushering in a new era of intelligence-driven conflict resolution and preventative security measures. Proxy wars and border disputes gave way to cooperative efforts to address common threats, from cyberterrorism to environmental disasters. The impact of their actions reverberated through the halls of power, reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East and beyond. Mossad, once the unquestioned master of covert operations, found itself at a crossroads, forced to adapt its tactics and embrace the technological advancements that had once threatened to undermine its very existence. Nomi's reputation, once tarnished by her failed assassination attempt, was restored, her role in exposing the truth and championing Kalani's work earning her a place of honor among her peers. And Kalani, the man she had once been tasked to eliminate, became a celebrated figure, his technological breakthroughs hailed as a game-changer in the realm of national security. As the years passed, the reverberations of that fateful night continued to be felt, with Nomi and Kalani's actions serving as a pivotal moment in the history of modern warfare and international relations. Their collaboration, forged in the crucible of a desperate struggle, had not only averted a potential catastrophe, but had also paved the way for a more stable and prosperous future, one where the pursuit of peace and security took precedence over the age-old conflicts that had long divided the region.
In the end, the story of Nomi Levy and Amir Kalani became a testament to the power of human ingenuity, the resilience of the human spirit, and the transformative potential of technology when wielded in the service of the greater good. Their legacy would endure, shaping the course of history and inspiring generations to come.